Welcome to This Explainer. You know, if you look at the news and just see a series of isolated, random events, well, today is going to completely change your perspective. We're distilling the sprawling front page of the Wall Street Journal to connect the dots between global war rooms, Washington policy shifts, and literally the price you pay at the local gas pump. Let's get right into it. We're breaking down the Friday, August 7th, 2026 edition to see exactly how geopolitics create a massive ripple effect, and it directly impacts domestic policies and, yep, your wallet. By examining this specific snapshot in time, we're going to uncover the hidden threads tying a diplomatic standoff in the Middle East all the way to corporate profits in Texas and inflation data in Washington. It's like a giant puzzle, and we're putting the pieces together. Here's our roadmap for today. First up, global tensions and conflicts. Second, shifts in U.S. policy. Third, the global energy crunch. And finally, markets and tech trends. Okay, kicking things off with Section 1, Global Tensions and Conflicts, the stakes on the world stage. Right now, the geopolitical tectonic plates are shifting rapidly. Complex diplomatic efforts and high-stakes military strategies are wobbling on multiple fronts, and the consequences are anything but localized. Nowhere is this more apparent than in the Middle East. President Trump's Board of Peace roadmap, which was designed to wind down the war in Gaza, is at serious risk of total collapse. Despite a July 31st plan outlining a post-war transition, continuing Israeli airstrikes and deep disputes over the actual terms of the agreement are threatening to completely derail the entire diplomatic effort before it even gets off the ground. And the deadlock here is just so stark. On one side, Israel and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu are insisting on the full, complete disarmament of Hamas before any troop withdrawal happens. But on the other side, Hamas's new, reportedly more pragmatic leader, Khalil al-Hayya, outright refuses to completely disarm and is actively warning against any further targeting of Palestinians. So this fundamental disagreement over the sequencing of peace, it leaves the entire region trapped in a very dangerous limbo. Meanwhile, that ripple effect extends straight to Europe. New U.S. intelligence assesses that a cornered Vladimir Putin might actually soon test NATO's resolve with limited assaults. We're talking anything from a targeted cyber attack to a small-scale land incursion. The ultimate goal? To fracture the NATO alliance. And this intel is particularly alarming right now because U.S. munition stockpiles, specifically precision strike missiles, ATACMS and Stingers, are severely degraded due to ongoing conflicts and transfers to Ukraine and Iran. Moving on to Section 2, Shifts in U.S. Policy, the domestic pivot. So, how exactly is the U.S. government responding to this turbulent landscape? Well, domestically, President Trump just signed 2 executive orders attempting to aggressively narrow birthright citizenship. These orders are specifically targeting children born to alien enemies and foreign government employees, which includes embassy staff. On top of that, they aim to crack down heavily on what's called birth tourism by instructing the State Department to cancel visas and issue lifetime bans for foreigners suspected of traveling to the U.S. solely to give birth. Now, these orders generated immediate political pushback. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer swiftly called the orders illegal and promised a vigorous legal challenge. And this is a really crucial piece of context. Just this past June, the Supreme Court actually voided a similar broader bid to deny citizenship to children of non-American parents, ruling it violated the 14th Amendment. So we are absolutely looking at an impending, high-stakes legal battle here. In another major policy shift reshaping the domestic landscape, the Federal Communications Commission, the FCC, just voted 2-1 to repeal a longstanding national cap on television station ownership. Previously, companies were strictly prohibited from reaching more than 39% of U.S. TV households. By eliminating this rule, the FCC is potentially unleashing a massive wave of broadcaster consolidation. Their argument? It helps traditional TV compete with streaming services and digital platforms. A real game changer for media ownership. That brings us to Section 3, the global energy crunch, profits and pain. But how do these global and political frictions actually impact the domestic economy and, more importantly, the everyday consumer? Well, this brings us to a sector where geopolitics hits your wallet directly, the global energy market. The absolutely crucial point here is the staggering number, 5 million. That's 5 million barrels a day of global refining capacity currently out of commission. Between the war in Iran knocking out Middle Eastern refineries and Ukrainian drone strikes debilitating Russian energy assets, the global fuel-making apparatus has suffered a massive, sustained blow. This massive supply shock has basically left the U.S. oil industry as the world's last major fuel supplier. As a result, the remaining U.S. refiners, like a Valero facility operating down in Corpus Christi, Texas, are being forced to run at a flat-out 97.2% capacity. To put that into perspective for a second, American fuel factories haven't had to operate at that intense level since 2018. They are essentially running the engines in the red just to keep up with domestic and global demand. And just look at the sheer financial windfall this dynamic has created. In these second quarter net profits, Valero brought in $3.7 billion. That is up more than fivefold. Phillips 66 saw profits jump fourfold to $3.8 billion. This is drawing some intense ire from the president, who obviously wants low energy prices. Yet, national gas prices are currently hovering around a painful $4.06 a gallon for the everyday consumer. Finally, let's dive into Section 4, Markets and Tech Trends. The ripple continues. We need to see how all of this builds into technology and financial market mechanics, because the friction we've seen in geopolitics and energy, it is absolutely echoing through the halls of finance and tech. In the tech investing world, retail investors are discovering a really harsh reality about unregulated secondary markets. A lot of folks who bought into the hype of privately held companies like SpaceX through complex funds known as Special Purpose Vehicles, or SVPs, are watching their expected windfalls completely vanish. Because SVPs act as a workaround to shareholder limits and operate with very little regulatory oversight, the collapse of these vehicles means investors are losing their shares entirely before they can even cash them in. Concurrently, over in the realm of economic data, Senator Elizabeth Warren is demanding answers about a highly technical but incredibly important timeline. The Bureau of Economic Analysis, the BEA, is changing how it calculates the Personal Consumption Expenditures Price Index, which is the Fed's preferred inflation metric. With June inflation sitting at 3.7%, this August methodology tweak is actually expected to slightly cool official inflation numbers by about 0.2% when they publish next month. Now, while Senator Warren is pressing for transparency in a highly charged political environment, economists largely agree these changes are defensible. The BEA is altering how they measure computer software, investment advice, and legal fees. For instance, by decoupling software inflation from surging AI hardware prices and separating the cost of investment advice from general stock market climbs, experts argue this new method is going to provide a much more accurate reflection of true price changes in these hard-to-measure corners of the economy. And, just to show that systemic friction happens on a micro level too, check out the seaside town of North Berwick, Scotland. While the rest of the world is grappling with missile strikes and complex inflation metrics, this quiet little town is currently hunting a mystery avenger. Someone is systematically disabling the town's newly installed, highly unpopular parking meters by filling them entirely with expanding foam. And frankly, the locals aren't exactly rushing to help the police find the culprit. It all connects, doesn't it? From the blocked transit lanes in the Strait of Hormuz driving up the cost at your local gas pump, to the changes in FCC rules that could alter who owns your local TV station, the macro always becomes the micro. So, as global conflicts alter energy prices and domestic policies reshape your media and economy, how do you think these interconnected global and economic shifts will impact your daily life in the coming year? Thanks for joining me for this explainer. Keep asking questions, and I'll see you next time.